Welcome back, and thank you for being here. You are listening to Drift Through History, a quiet place where we let the past carry us gently towards sleep. Tonight, we are going to walk very far back, further than any city, further than any written word, further than the first human footprint pressed into cool mud. We are going back to a world that had no name, because there was no one to name it. A world of warm air and slow rivers, of green things and enormous, patient shapes moving through the ferns. Tonight, we are going to spend a little while among the dinosaurs. Over the next 100 small facts, we will move softly through their long story. We will see the world before flowers ever opened. We will meet the smallest of them, no heavier than a folded letter, and the largest, whose footprints filled with rainwater, like little ponds. We will look at how they breathed, and how they cared for their young, and what colors may have moved across their skin. And near the end, very gently, we will watch the light change over their last afternoon. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you are always welcome to subscribe and drift along with us. No pressure at all. Only, if it helps you rest, it would be lovely to have you with us again. And as we go, I want you to keep one small thing in the back of your mind. A single footprint, pressed into soft ground long ago. We will return to it, again and again, the way you return to a familiar path in the dark. Somewhere far off, imagine a low call carrying across a warm valley, the way sound travels over water at dusk. You do not need to listen for it. It is simply there, underneath everything, keeping us company. So settle in now. Let your shoulders come down from your ears. Let the day you have had begin to loosen its grip. There is nothing here that needs solving, nothing to remember in the morning. Only a long, soft road backward, and the sound of my voice to keep you company. Let us begin. Part 1. A World Without Us. 1. Let us begin with the ground itself. The age of the dinosaurs has a name that scientists use, the Mesozoic, and it stretched across an almost unimaginable amount of time, from around 252 million years ago to about 66 million years ago. Numbers that large stop meaning very much, so let us make one small, solid thing to hold instead. A footprint. 3 broad toes pressed into wet clay by a riverbank, filling slowly with water as the animal moves on. That single mark is where we will keep returning tonight. Everything else in this world, the seas and the forests and the great slow bodies, all of it happened around footprints just like that one, made and lost and made again, over a span of time so long the mind simply cannot hold its edges. But the footprint, you can hold, and if the years feel dizzying, you can always come back and rest your hand on that one small shape in the mud. 2. Now, here is something that surprises almost everyone. For most of the age of the dinosaurs, there were no flowers, none at all. If you could stand in a Jurassic forest and look around, you would find no blossoms, no petals, no bright colors calling to bees. Instead, the world was green upon green, tall conifers like the pines and monkey puzzle trees, soft tree ferns unrolling their fronds, and squat palm-like plants called cycads standing in patient rows. It is easy to imagine how quiet the colors would have been, everything in shades of deep green and dry gold, the way a forest looks in the last hour before rain. The dinosaurs lived most of their story in that flowerless world, and it makes you wonder what it smelled like, a land of resin and fern and warm earth, with not a single rose anywhere on Earth. 3. The world they moved through was warmer than ours, and gentler at its edges. Through much of the Mesozoic, there was little or no ice at the poles, and the difference in temperature between the equator and the far north and south was smaller than it is today. Picture that for a moment. No great white ice caps, forests reaching toward latitudes that are frozen now, a world where a slow-moving animal could wander a very long way without ever meeting true winter. Scientists reconstruct these ancient climates from rocks and chemistry rather than thermometers, so the exact temperatures remain estimates, softened by uncertainty, but the broad picture is steady and warm. A world, you might say, that was easy to fall asleep in. 4. And here is perhaps the strangest thing of all about that early world. There was only one piece of land. At the start of the dinosaurs story, nearly all the continents were joined together into a single vast supercontinent that scientists call Pangaea. One enormous body of land wrapped around one enormous ocean. You could, in principle, have walked from what is now Canada to what is now Africa without ever crossing the sea. The dinosaurs first spread out across that single connected world, which is part of why their early relatives turn up on land that is now scattered to opposite ends of the earth. It is a quiet thought that the world was once all one thing before it slowly came apart. 5. Deep inside that single continent, far from any coast, lay something few of us ever picture: enormous, dry interiors. Because so much land sat far from the softening influence of the sea, climate models suggest the heart of Pangaea may have swung between harsh extremes, with vast seasonal deserts and a great cycle of monsoon rains that researchers sometimes call the mega-monsoon. This is a reconstruction, not a photograph, so we hold it gently, but it hints at a world of long, dry spells broken by heavy, drenching rains, red dust and cracked ground giving way to sudden floods. The earliest dinosaurs were animals of that demanding in-between world, and somehow, in that difficult place, they were quietly getting their start. 6. Nothing about this world stayed still, though the changes were slower than any human lifetime could feel. Over tens of millions of years, Pangaea began to pull apart. New oceans opened between the drifting pieces, the young Atlantic among them, widening a little each age. As the seafloor spread, sea levels rose, and shallow seas crept up over the land, flooding the low interiors of continents. For long stretches, a warm, shallow sea actually cut North America in two. It is easy to imagine standing on its shore, warm water lapping at your feet, with no sense at all that beneath you, a whole world was slowly rearranging itself. The dinosaurs lived their entire history on a stage that was always gently sliding apart beneath them. 7. It helps to know that the age of the dinosaurs was not one single scene, but 3 long acts. Scientists divided into the Triassic, the Jurassic, and the Cretaceous. In the Triassic, the earliest dinosaurs appeared, small and easy to overlook among other creatures. In the Jurassic, they grew into the giants we half remember from childhood. And in the Cretaceous, the last and longest act, they reached their fullest variety, just before the story closed. Each act had its own light and its own cast, and knowing there are 3 of them turns the vast, blurry stretch of time into something almost like a book, with chapters you can turn one at a time, slowly, on the edge of sleep. 8. The middle act, the Jurassic, was so rich in one particular plant that it has earned a nickname. Some people call it the Age of Cycads. Cycads are those short, sturdy, palm-like plants with a crown of stiff green fronds spreading from a thick trunk. In the Jurassic, they grew abundant and diverse, standing across the landscape like a quiet, unhurried crowd. Imagine a great herd of long-necked dinosaurs moving slowly among them at dusk, brushing past the fronds, cropping mouthfuls of green as they went. There were no lawns, no meadows as we know them, just fern and conifer and cycad, endlessly patient, feeding the largest animals ever to walk on land. 9. And then, late in the story, something new and small began to appear. Flowers. The first flowering plants spread during the Cretaceous. That final act, beginning quietly and then reaching outward, even toward the poles, as the ages passed. So the very last dinosaurs, unlike all the ones before them, lived in a world that was just learning to bloom. Magnolias and their early cousins, opening among the ferns. It is a tender thought, and a little sad, that color came into the world of the dinosaurs almost at the end, as if the earth were quietly decorating a room the guests were about to leave. 10. Before we move on, let us try to feel how long this all was. The age of the dinosaurs lasted something like 180 million years. Our own kind, in anything like our present form, has been here for only a few 100,000. Here is one small fact to carry that home, and then we will let it go. The great Tyrannosaurus lived so near the end of the story that it is closer in time to you, listening now, than it was to the Stegosaurus, that plated dinosaur we so often picture beside it. Whole worlds of dinosaurs came and went in between. That footprint by the river, then, is not one moment but countless moments, layered over unthinkable depths of time. And now that we have felt how deep that time runs, we can begin to ask the gentlest question of all. Where, in all of it, did the dinosaurs actually come from? Part 2. How it all began. 11. Here is something we do not often say about the dinosaurs. They were born out of disaster. Just before their story begins, the Earth passed through the worst catastrophe life has ever known, an extinction at the end of the Permian period, around 252 million years ago. Scientists estimate that something like 9 in 10 species in the sea, and the great majority on land, simply vanished. For a long while afterward, the world was a quieter, emptier place, slowly healing. And it was into that recovering world, tens of millions of years later, that the first dinosaurs walked. It is a strange and gentle thing to sit with. The animals that would one day rule the land did not arrive in triumph. They arrived into an emptiness, into a world making room for something new. Everything grand that followed grew out of that long, patient recovery. 12. And when they did appear, they were not the giants we picture. The earliest dinosaurs were modest, lightly built creatures, some no larger than a dog, others about the size of a person. Animals like Herrerasaurus and Coelophysis, slender and quick, running on 2 legs through the dry Triassic landscape. If you had been there, you might not have looked at them twice. Nothing about them announced that their descendants would grow to weigh as much as a herd of elephants, or would still be flitting through our gardens as birds tonight. There is something tender in that. The mightiest story in the history of land animals began with small, unremarkable creatures, getting by, drawing no particular attention to themselves. 13. For a surprisingly long time, the dinosaurs were not in charge at all. This is one of the quiet corrections that recent research keeps underlining. Through much of the Triassic, other reptiles held the leading roles, larger and more numerous, while dinosaurs lived at the edges of the scene, waiting, though of course they did not know they were waiting. Millions of years passed with them as bit players rather than kings. It is a comforting thought, in its way, that the ones who would eventually inherit the world spent a long apprenticeship in the background first, in no hurry, simply living, The world did not hand them everything at once. It let them grow into it, slowly. 14. If you want to know where the oldest dinosaurs rested, you must look to the southern lands. Some of the earliest good fossils come from what is now Argentina and Brazil, from ancient rock formations with names like Isquigualasto, and from parts of southern Africa. Picture a dry basin of red and gray stone under a wide sky, the kind of place where the ground itself seems to be made of time. It is there, in stone laid down more than 230 million years ago, that we find the first clear traces of dinosaurs. When those animals were alive, all those southern lands were joined together, so the pattern makes a kind of quiet sense. The cradle of the dinosaurs was a single, connected, southern world. 115. There may have been a helping hand from the weather, though here we must tread softly, because this is a hypothesis rather than a settled fact. Some researchers have proposed that a long, unusually wet interval in the Triassic, sometimes called the Carnian pluvial episode, may have reshaped the landscape and given early dinosaurs an opening to spread and diversify. Rain, in this idea, changed which plants grew and which animals thrived, and the dinosaurs happened to be well suited to the new conditions. Whether it truly unfolded that way is still being worked out, but it is a lovely image to drift on. The possibility that a season of rain, lasting far longer than any season we know, quietly opened the door to the whole age that followed. 16. So what actually made a dinosaur a dinosaur? The answer is humbler than you might expect, and it lives in the legs. Unlike lizards and crocodiles, which hold their limbs out to the sides and sprawl close to the ground, dinosaurs stood with their legs tucked straight down beneath their bodies, carrying their weight from directly above. It sounds like a small thing, but it is the difference between crawling and standing, between an animal pressed to the earth and one lifted up off it, able to stride, to run, to grow tall and heavy. Think of the moment a small child first pushes up onto 2 steady feet. Something like that, written into the bones of an entire dynasty. The dinosaurs, from the very start, were animals that stood up. 17. Early on, the family split into 2 great branches, and scientists tell them apart by the shape of their hips. One group is called the lizard-hipped dinosaurs, the other, the bird-hipped. The names describe the arrangement of the bones in the pelvis, the way certain hip bones point forward or backward. It is the kind of detail that sounds dry, until you realize it quietly organizes the entire dinosaur world, sorting the long-necked giants and the great meat-eaters into one branch, and many of the armored and horned plant-eaters into the other. 2 designs for a hip, drawn near the beginning, shaping which creatures could become which. Sometimes the largest patterns in life turn on the smallest hinges. 18. And now the gentle joke that history has played on us. You might reasonably guess that birds descended from the bird-hipped dinosaurs. They did not. Birds arose, instead, from within the lizard-hipped branch, from the very group that also included the great 2-legged meat-eaters. The tidy names, drawn up long ago, point exactly the wrong way. It is the sort of thing that makes scientists smile and shake their heads. The sparrow at your window is not a descendant of the bird-hipped dinosaurs at all, but a cousin, many times removed, of the fierce hunters. There is something quietly delightful in that. Even our labels for the ancient world carry their own small human mistakes, worn smooth by time. 19. Just as one great extinction opened the door for the dinosaurs, another finally handed them the room. At the end of the Triassic, around 201 million years ago, the world passed through yet another mass extinction, and many of the dinosaurs' rivals disappeared in it. The competitors that had kept them at the edges were swept away. Only after that second clearing did the dinosaurs truly come into their own, spreading across the Jurassic world as its unquestioned rulers. It is a sobering rhythm to notice, and we will only touch it lightly here. Again and again, the story of life turns on endings, and out of each ending, something new is given its chance to grow. 20. So picture them now, at last inheriting the whole warm world. Freed from their old rivals, the dinosaurs poured into every shape a body could take. Some ran low and fast, some grew armor and spikes, and some began, slowly, over generations beyond counting, to grow larger and larger still, until their footprints by the river were no longer little marks a hand could cover, but broad basins that held standing rainwater and reflected the sky. Somewhere off in that landscape, a low call carries across the warm valley and is answered. We have seen where the dinosaurs came from. Now let us go and stand, very quietly, beside the largest of them all. Part 3. The Great Longnecks. 21. Come and stand beside a footprint again, only this time it is enormous, so wide that you could sit down inside it, curled up, with room to spare, and after rain, it would hold a shallow pool that mirrored the clouds. This print was left by a sauropod, one of the long-necked dinosaurs, and these were the largest animals ever to walk upon the land. Not the largest of their age, the largest of any age, before or since. Only the great whales of our own seas have ever matched them. When you picture a dinosaur that shakes the ground with each step, its neck sweeping slowly across the treetops, you are picturing a sauropod. Let us spend a little while in their long shadow. There is something deeply calming about an animal so large that it has no need to hurry. 22. The most famous of these giants known from solid evidence is one called Argentinosaurus, named for the land where it was found. From the bones we have, it is estimated to have stretched somewhere around 30 to 40 meters from nose to tail, and to have weighed as much as a whole herd of elephants gathered together. Those figures are estimates, and scientists still debate the exact numbers, so we hold them loosely. But even the cautious version is staggering. An animal longer than a tennis court and heavier than any land creature you could ever meet. And it moved not by charging, but by walking, slowly, patiently, the whole enormous body swaying forward, one deliberate step at a time. 23. You might wonder how anyone can weigh an animal that no living person has ever seen. It is a fair question, and the honest answer is that we cannot do it exactly. Scientists estimate a sauropod's weight from the thickness of its limb bones, which had to be strong enough to bear it, and from careful three-dimensional models built up from the skeleton. Different methods give different answers, sometimes quite far apart, which is why the same dinosaur may be described as weighing 50 tons in one study and 80 in another. This is not a weakness in the science. It is simply honesty about a creature reconstructed from stone. When you hear a number for a dinosaur's weight, it is best to imagine a gentle range, a soft cloud of possibility, rather than a single figure on a scale. 24. Here is the quiet trick that let them grow so large without collapsing under themselves. Their bones were not solid. Much of a sauropod's skeleton was hollowed out and filled with air, threaded through by extensions of the lungs, in the same way a bird's bones are light and airy today. So an animal that looked as heavy as a small building was, in truth, lighter than its size suggested, its great frame built more like a cathedral than a block of stone. Vast, strong, and full of open space. It is a lovely thing to rest on, The very largest creatures ever to walk the earth were on the inside, partly made of air and of breath. 25. Now we come to the ghost giants, and here we must whisper, because they live at the edge of what we can know. There are hints, in fragments and in old, sometimes lost records, of sauropods even larger than Argentinosaurus. One, known mostly from photographs of bones that have since gone missing, may have rivaled a blue whale in size. Another was described long ago from a single huge vertebra that was misplaced not long after, leaving only a drawing behind. These animals may have been the largest that ever lived, or the estimates may be too generous. We simply cannot be certain, and we may never be. There is a particular kind of wonder in that, a giant glimpsed once, in the corner of the eye of history, and then gone back into the dark. 26. Why did they grow so vast in the first place? There are several ideas, and the gentlest and perhaps most important has to do with food. The plants of the Mesozoic, the ferns and conifers and cycads, were tough and not very nourishing, mouthful for mouthful. A very large animal, with a very long gut, can hold food inside itself for a long time, drawing out every last scrap of goodness from even poor, fibrous browse. So great size may have been, in part, simply a way of making a living on hard fare. There is something almost peaceful in that answer. These titans were not built for battle or conquest. They were built to eat quietly, endlessly, and slowly, and to turn a forest of tough green leaves into mountains of patient flesh. 27. And then, of course, there was the neck. A sauropod's neck could be extraordinarily long, in some cases longer than the entire body of most other animals. Such a neck let the dinosaur stand in one place and sweep its small head across a great arc of forest, gathering food from a wide reach without ever moving its heavy feet. Whether they usually held those necks high, like cranes, or swung them low and level, like enormous vacuum hoses across the ferns, is still debated, and probably differed from one kind to another. Picture it either way, whichever soothes you more. A living crane of flesh and bone, browsing the evening treetops, or a low gray neck drifting quietly over the undergrowth as the light fades. 28. Some of them were tall beyond easy imagining. One sauropod, known as Sauroposeidon, is estimated to have been able to raise its head some 18 meters into the air. If it stood beside a modern apartment building, it could have peered calmly into a 6th-floor window. Think of that for a moment, gently. An animal that fed among the highest branches, its head moving in a part of the world that belonged otherwise only to flying things and clouds. To a creature at your feet, it would have seemed less like an animal and more like a piece of the landscape that had decided, slowly, to move. And yet it too was just an animal, breathing, browsing, living out its quiet days high in the warm air. 29. Here is the fact that surprises people most, and it is a tender one. These giants did not begin as giants. A baby sauropod hatched from an egg not much larger than a melon, small enough to hold in your 2 hands. And yet, in the space of only 15 or 20 years, some of them grew into the largest land animals that have ever lived. They must have grown at a tremendous pace, day after day, adding weight almost visibly, a small creature becoming a mountain within a single human youth. It is hard not to feel something soft toward that. Every one of those unimaginable giants was once a fragile hatchling, blinking in the light, taking its first uncertain steps among the ferns, with everything still ahead of it. 30. For all their size, remember, the great longnecks were gentle in their habits. They ate leaves. They walked slowly. They harmed nothing that did not stand between them and the next mouthful of green. And when they had passed, moving on through the warm forest, they left behind them those broad, deep footprints, filling quietly with rainwater, holding a little piece of sky. The ground remembers them still, in trackways pressed into ancient stone, long lines of enormous steps walking off toward a horizon that vanished long ago. We have stood beside the largest creatures of this world. Now, to balance them, let us go and find the smallest. For not every dinosaur shook the earth. Some were light enough to rest in the palm of your hand. Part 4. The Small and the Swift. 31. After the giants, let us cup our hands and hold something very small. Not every dinosaur shook the ground. The smallest ones we know from grown adult skeletons, setting the birds aside for now, were no bigger than a pigeon or a crow, weighing only 100 grams or so, light enough to perch on your finger. Delicate, feathered, quick-eyed little creatures, darting through the underbrush after insects. It can be hard to fit them into the same word as the sauropods, and yet they were dinosaurs just as truly, sharing the same deep family. There is something restful in holding both pictures at once. The word dinosaur is wide enough to stretch from a creature heavier than a house to one that could shelter in your two hands. 32. Among the plant eaters too there were little ones. A dinosaur called Fruitidens was scarcely the size of a rabbit, weighing perhaps half a kilogram, nibbling quietly at low plants and small creatures near the forest floor. Picture it in the green shade, no taller than the ferns around it, keeping to the safe and shadowed places, going about its small life, while the enormous long necks browsed the canopy far overhead. The Mesozoic was not only a world of titans, it was also a world of modest, low-to-the-ground creatures, making a careful living in the undergrowth. Easy to overlook, easy to love. The giants get the stories, but the small ones were there all along, in far greater numbers, tucked into the quiet corners of the world. 33. Here is a gentle mystery that scientists have noticed and cannot fully explain. For all their variety, the non-bird dinosaurs never seem to have grown truly tiny. Setting the birds aside, no known adult dinosaur weighed less than about 400 grams, roughly the weight of a small rabbit, and very few weighed less than a bag of sugar. What makes this puzzling is that some of their own earlier relatives had been smaller than that, and their bird descendants would become far smaller still. So there seems to have been an invisible floor beneath dinosaur size, a lower limit they pressed against but did not cross, and no one is quite sure why. It is a strange and pleasant thing to drift on. Somewhere in the rules of their bodies lay a boundary we can see but cannot yet read. 34. And yet one single branch of the family did something no other dinosaurs did. Over a stretch of some 50 million years, the particular lineage that would eventually lead to birds grew steadily, relentlessly smaller, not in a single leap, but generation after generation, from a fairly large animal down to something under a single kilogram. It was the only dinosaur line known to shrink continuously over such an immense span of time, and as it shrank, its skeleton is thought to have changed several times faster than the dinosaur average, remaking itself for a smaller, lighter, quicker way of being. Try to feel the slowness of that, a whole lineage, over millions of years, quietly folding itself smaller and smaller, as if getting ready, without knowing it, to one day leave the ground. 35. Some dinosaurs were built, quite plainly, to run. There was a group so lightly made, with such long, slender legs and small heads on flexible necks, that scientists nicknamed them the ostrich mimics because they resembled that swift bird of today. Their bones were hollow and airy, their bodies balanced over powerful hind limbs, everything about them shaped for speed across open ground. Exactly how fast they could go we cannot measure directly, so any precise figure would be a guess. But their build tells the story clearly enough. These were sprinters of the ancient world, feathered and long-limbed, that would have crossed a clearing in a blur, then stopped, still and alert, listening. It is easy to imagine them at dawn, a small flock of them poised at the edge of the ferns, ready to run. 36. One small dinosaur seems to have taken to the air, at least a little. It is called Microraptor, and it was tiny, crow-sized, and remarkable because it carried long feathers not only on its arms but on its legs as well, giving it what looked almost like 4 wings. Most researchers think it probably could not fly with true flapping power, but that it very likely glided, spreading those feathered limbs to sail from tree to tree through the forest, slowing its fall the way a paper glider slows. We say likely because the details of how it moved are still being studied. But picture it anyway, gently. A small dark shape stepping off a branch at dusk and simply drifting, unhurried, down through the leaves to the next tree. The sky was beginning, quietly, to open to them. 37. Let us pause and try to feel how many kinds there were. Scientists have named well over 900 different sorts of non-bird dinosaur so far, and that is only what has been found. Careful estimates suggest that perhaps 3/4 of all the kinds that ever left fossils are still buried, undiscovered, waiting in the rock. And the total number that ever lived, found or not, may run to several thousand. So every dinosaur you can name, every one in every book, is a single lit window in a vast dark building, most of whose rooms we have never seen. There is no sadness in that, only wonder. The age of the dinosaurs was fuller, stranger, and more crowded with life than we will ever fully know. 38. And what shapes that life took. Some dinosaurs wore horns, 3 to a face, or great bony frills spreading behind the head. Some carried plates and spikes down their backs, or heavy clubs of bone at the tips of their tails. Some had crests on their skulls, hollow and curving, that may have helped them call to one another. Some grew tall sails along their spines. There were long whip-like tails, and armored hides like living fortresses, and slender running legs, and stubby digging claws. If you can imagine a way for a body to be built, some dinosaur, somewhere in those long ages, most likely tried it. The Mesozoic was a great, patient workshop of shapes, endlessly experimenting, in no hurry at all, across more time than we can hold. 39. Here is a small secret to tuck away, and we will return to it much later, at the very end of our journey. The smallest dinosaur in all of that vast family is not extinct at all. It is alive today, and it may be resting, right now, on a flower somewhere warm. It weighs about 2 grams, less than a coin, and it hums as it hovers. We will not say its name yet, but hold the thought lightly as you drift, that the same family which produced the largest creatures ever to walk the earth also produced the tiniest, and that the tiniest is still here, still humming among us, carrying the age of the dinosaurs forward into tonight. 40. So picture, side by side in the soft mud of an ancient shore, 2 footprints. One is a broad basin left by a long-necked giant, deep enough to hold a pool of sky. The other is a mark no larger than a sparrow's, 3 slender toes pressed lightly beside it. Both were made by dinosaurs. Both belong to the same great story. Small or vast, Swift or slow, they all shared the same warm blood of their world, the same breath moving in and out, the same simple business of staying alive from one day to the next. And it is that inner life, the breath and the warmth and the quiet machinery of the body, that we will look at next. For a dinosaur, on the inside, was stranger and more wonderful than you might expect. Part 5. Inside a Dinosaur. 41. Let us begin on the inside with an old question. Were the dinosaurs warm-blooded, like us and the birds, or cold-blooded, like lizards, taking their heat from the sun? For a long time, people assumed they were cold and sluggish, but the gentle answer that has emerged is that many of them were probably somewhere in between, neither fully warm nor fully cold, but lukewarm, generating some of their own heat while still leaning on the warmth of their world. Scientists sometimes call this middle way. It is a soft and human sort of answer, really. Not a sharp line, but a blending. The dinosaurs, it seems, ran their bodies at a temperate, in-between pace, warm enough to be active, calm enough to be patient, matched to that mild and unhurried world. 42. You may wonder how anyone could possibly measure the body heat of an animal dead for millions of years, and the answer is one of the loveliest tricks in all of paleontology. When an animal's body lays down minerals, in eggshell or in teeth, the exact way certain atoms bond together depends on how warm the body was at the time. By reading those bonds in fossil eggshell and enamel, scientists can estimate a dinosaur's temperature to within a few degrees. One study of a duck-billed dinosaur's eggs suggested the mother's body ran at around 44 degrees Celsius, a little warmer than our own. It is an astonishing thing when you sit with it. Written into the shell of an egg, in the language of atoms, is the warmth of a body that has been gone for tens of millions of years. 43. Now, take a slow breath in and let it out. However you just did that, a dinosaur very likely did it better. The bird-line dinosaurs, and probably many others, breathed using a system of air sacs that pushed air through the lungs in a smooth one-way flow, rather than in and out the way ours does. This meant fresh air was moving across their lungs almost all the time, even as they breathed out, making their breathing remarkably efficient. It is the same system birds use today, which is part of why a small bird can fly over a mountain range in thin air without faltering. So the great dinosaurs did not gasp and labor as much as their size might suggest. They breathed with a quiet, continuous efficiency, drawing the warm Mesozoic air deep and clean through their bodies. 44. And that breath did not stay only in the lungs. As we touched on among the giants, extensions of those air sacs reached out and hollowed the bones themselves, threading passages of air all through the skeleton. So a dinosaur was, in a sense, filled with breath from the inside, its very frame opened up and lightened by air. Picture that gently, a body in which the boundary between breathing and bone was blurred, in which the air a creature took in flowed not just through its chest, but through the hollows of its skeleton. It made them lighter, and it made their breathing better, and it let some of them grow to sizes that solid bone could never have carried. Inside every dinosaur, quietly, there was a great deal of air, moving. 45. What about their skin? For most dinosaurs, the skin we find preserved was covered in small, pebbly scales, little rounded bumps set side by side, rather than overlapping, like the scales of a fish. Not armor in most cases, just a fine beaded hide, softer to imagine than you might think. And in recent years, fossils have begun to show this skin in breathtaking detail. One remarkable specimen described very recently preserved dinosaur skin down almost to the level of individual cells, a depth of detail no one had thought possible. To hold that in mind is a quiet marvel. The outer surface of an animal, the very texture it presented to the touch of the ancient air, saved in stone across an ocean of time, waiting patiently for us to learn how to read it. 46. Sometimes, very rarely, we find more than bones and scraps of skin. We find something close to a whole outer body, dried and preserved before it could rot away, a kind of natural mummy. One such duck-billed dinosaur, described recently, kept not only its skin, but details we would never have guessed from the skeleton alone, including hoof-like coverings on its feet and a row of soft spikes running down its back. Bone alone would never have told us those spikes were there. It takes these rare, tender accidents of preservation to show us the animal as it truly looked in life. Each one is a small gift across time, a dinosaur handing us, quietly, a truer picture of itself than its bare bones ever could. 47. Here is something that has quietly rewritten how we picture them. Feathers were not rare, and they were not only for the birds. Many of the two-legged meat-eaters wore them, and traces of feather-like coverings, bristles and quills have turned up even among some plant-eating dinosaurs, far from the bird line. This suggests that a fuzzy, downy covering may have been widespread and very old, appearing long before any dinosaur could fly. Feathers, it seems, began not as tools for flight, but as warmth against the cool of night, and perhaps as color and display, a way of being seen. So set aside the old image of bare, scaly monsters. Many dinosaurs were soft to look at, downed and feathered, more like enormous strange birds than like lizards. The world of the dinosaurs was a good deal fluffier than we long imagined. 48. A dinosaur's bones, it turns out, kept a kind of diary. As they grew, many of them laid down faint rings inside their bones, a little like the growth rings of a tree, marking out the seasons and the years. By slicing a fossil bone very thin and counting those rings under a microscope, scientists can estimate how old an animal was when it died and how fast it grew along the way. This is how we know that some of the giants reached their full, tremendous size in under 20 years, and that others lived on for many decades. A whole life, its pace and its length, quietly recorded ring by ring in the dark inside a bone, and readable still if you know how to look. 49. Let us gently put an old story to rest. You may have heard that the plated dinosaur Stegosaurus had a second brain in its hips, a little backup mind to run its heavy tail. It is a charming idea, and it is not true. What is true is that there was a roomy space in the hip region of its spinal cord, larger than you might expect, and long ago someone imagined it must hold a second brain. But that is now regarded as a lovely mistake rather than a fact. Stegosaurus, like most dinosaurs, ran its whole great body on a single, rather modest brain up in its head. There is something endearing in these old errors, in how readily we filled the gaps in a strange animal with our own imaginings. The truth, quieter and stranger, was there in the bones all along. 50. So gather the picture we have built. On the inside, a dinosaur was a warmish, breathing, air-filled thing, its skeleton threaded with passages of air, its skin beaded with fine scales or softened with down and feathers, its bones quietly counting the years. Not a monster at all, but a living body, running warm, growing fast, matched to its mild green world. Somewhere out in that world, A low call carries across the valley and fades, and one of these warm, feathered creatures lifts its head to listen. We have looked inside them. Now let us step back out into the light and air and simply follow one of them through an ordinary day. Or even a dinosaur, most of the time, was just trying to eat and rest and make it gently to nightfall. Part 6. A Day in the Mesozoic. 51. Imagine trying to eat a whole forest without ever really chewing. Many of the plant-eating dinosaurs faced exactly this, for their teeth were made for stripping and snipping leaves, not for grinding them down. Their solution was quiet and clever. They swallowed stones, smooth, rounded stones that sat in the gut and helped mash the tough plants as the stomach churned, doing the work that grinding teeth would do in us. We find these polished stomach stones among their bones, worn glossy from years of use. And birds do the very same thing today, keeping grit in a muscular pouch to grind their food. So picture a giant, having cropped its fill of ferns, standing still in the evening light, the slow inner tumbling of stones, quietly turning leaves into life. 52. And the teeth they did have were never in short supply, because they simply kept growing new ones. Where our teeth, once lost, are gone for good, a dinosaur replaced its teeth again and again throughout its life. Some of the duck-billed plant eaters carried hundreds of teeth packed together into grinding surfaces, with fresh ones always rising to replace the worn. The long-necked giants regrew each tooth in a matter of weeks, wearing them down fast on their rough diet and shrugging off the loss. Imagine never fearing a broken tooth, never mourning one, because another was always on its way. There is a strange comfort in it. Their mouths were not fixed and fragile like ours, but flowing, renewing, endlessly patient, like everything else about their unhurried world. 53. Now, listen. In the films, dinosaurs roar, enormous open-mouthed bellows that shake the theater. The truth was very likely softer and stranger and more beautiful. Many researchers think dinosaurs did not roar at all, but made their sounds much as birds and crocodiles do, with closed mouths, deep booms and rumbles and coos that resonated inside the body, rather than blasting out. Some of the crested duckbills may have had hollow, curving crests that worked almost like natural trumpets, sending low, mournful notes rolling across the valleys. We say may because much of this is carefully modeled rather than certain, but hold the picture as you rest. That low call we have kept hearing, carrying across the warm valley at dusk, was less a roar than a long, soft note, felt in the chest as much as heard. 54. A dinosaur met the world first, in many cases, through its nose. Studies of the spaces inside their skulls suggest that some of the great hunters had an extraordinary sense of smell, able to catch a faint scent drifting on the wind from far away. Others had eyes set forward on the face, giving them overlapping vision and a good sense of depth, useful for judging distance across the ground. Each kind of dinosaur sensed the world in its own particular way, tuned to its own way of living. The sniffing hunter, the wide-eyed browser, the sharp-eyed little runner. It is easy to imagine one of them pausing at the edge of a clearing, lifting its head, reading the evening air through senses far keener than ours, gathering a whole landscape of information we would never notice. 55. Some dinosaurs, it seems, belong to the day, and some to the night. There is a ring of small bones inside the eye of many animals, and its size and shape can hint at how much light the eye was built to gather. Reading these rings in fossil skulls Scientists have suggested that the large plant eaters may have been active on and off both day and night, while some of the small hunters were likely creatures of darkness, prowling the moonlit undergrowth after prey. This is careful inference, not certainty, so we hold it softly. But it deepens the picture in a lovely way. The Mesozoic night was not empty. It had its own quiet traffic, small feathered shapes moving through the dark while the giants dozed. 56. And here, for a channel such as this one, is perhaps the most fitting fact of all. We have actually found a dinosaur asleep. A small feathered creature was preserved in the exact posture of slumber, sitting with its legs folded beneath it, its long neck curled around, and its head tucked back beneath one forelimb, in precisely the way a bird tucks its head under its wing to sleep tonight. It was buried so gently and so suddenly that this tender pose was kept for over 70 million years. Scientists nicknamed it the sleeping dragon. Sit with that a moment as you settle deeper. Across an unthinkable gulf of time, one small dinosaur lay down, curled up, tucked its head away, and closed its eyes, exactly as a sleeping bird does now. Exactly, perhaps, as you are beginning to. 57. The plant eaters shared the forest without quarreling over it, by each taking a different part. The tallest longnecks browsed the high canopy, out of everyone else's reach. Others fed at the middle height, where their necks and legs let them graze, and the low, small ones nibbled among the ferns near the ground. In this way, a single landscape could feed many kinds at once, each keeping to its own layer of green, like guests at a long table, each reaching only for the dish in front of them. There was no need to compete for every leaf. The forest was vast and slow-growing and generous, and there was room, most of the time, for everyone to eat their fill and move on. 58. They were not always alone either. In many places we find long trackways where dozens of dinosaurs walk together in the same direction, at the same time, their footprints overlapping like a crowd crossing wet ground. From these we gather that at least some dinosaurs moved in herds, traveling as a group across the land. In certain trackways, the smaller prints, the young ones, appear toward the middle, with the larger adults around the outside, as if the herd kept its little ones sheltered in the center as it moved. It is a warm thing to picture at the day's end. Not solitary monsters, but families and herds, crossing the plains together in the low gold light, the young ones, safe in the middle of the moving crowd. 59. So let us gently correct the soundtrack of that ancient world. It was probably far quieter than the movies suggest, and far stranger. Less a place of constant roaring, and more a place of low booms felt through the ground, of soft coos and rumbles, of the rustle of enormous bodies moving through ferns, of wings and feathers, and the hum of insects in the warm air. A dusk in the Mesozoic may have sounded less like a battle and more like a vast, dim aviary settling for the night. Deep notes rolling across the distance, small calls answering, and then, slowly, quiet. It is a soundscape made for sleep, if ever there was one, low and warm and unhurried, fading softly toward the dark. 60. And so we follow one of them to nightfall. It has fed, cropping the ferns and swallowing its smooth stones. It has listened to the low calls rolling across the valley and answered them, or let them pass. Now, as the first stars come out over the flowerless forest, it settles. It folds its legs beneath itself, curls its neck around and tucks its head away, just like the sleeping dragon, just like a bird, just like you. And close beside it, half hidden in the leaves, there is a nest. and in the nest a single egg, warm and quiet in the dark. We have followed a dinosaur through its day. Now let us kneel by that nest, very softly, and see how the smallest dinosaurs of all began. Part 7. Eggs and Little Ones. 61. Kneel down now, very gently, beside the nest. Here is where every dinosaur that ever lived began, from the smallest runner to the greatest long neck, inside an egg, curled and waiting in the dark of the shell. All dinosaurs laid eggs, without exception, resting them in nests scraped into the earth or built up from mounded plants. There is something quieting in that shared beginning. The animal whose footprint could hold a pool of rainwater, and the animal light enough to sit on your finger, both started in the same small, patient way, as a life folded up inside a shell, warm and hidden, and slowly getting ready. Tonight we will linger here, in the softest part of the whole story, among the eggs and the newly hatched. 62. Here is the fact that catches everyone by surprise. Even the very largest dinosaurs laid eggs that were, by their own standards, remarkably small, no bigger than a football, some only the size of a grapefruit, easily held in two cupped hands. An animal as long as a tennis court did not lay an egg to match, and there is a gentle reason for it. An eggshell must stay thin enough to let air pass through to the growing life inside. Make the egg too large, and the shell needed to hold its shape would be too thick to breathe through. So the giants could not lay giant eggs. Instead, they laid many modest ones. The largest creatures ever to walk the earth began as something you could have carried, carefully, in the palms of your hands. 63. And they often did not nest alone. At certain sites, we find the traces of enormous nesting grounds, where great numbers of dinosaurs gathered to lay their eggs together in the same place, season after season, returning across the years. In one such place in the southern lands, thousands of eggs were preserved, some still holding the delicate remains of the unhatched young inside, down to patches of their tiny skin. Imagine that gathering, a wide plain dotted with nests as far as you could see, the air full of low calls, whole communities of dinosaurs sharing the work of the season, each tending its own small circle of eggs in the warmth, all of them waiting together for the same quiet miracle. 64. The waiting was long. By studying faint growth lines in the teeth of unhatched dinosaur embryos, scientists have estimated that some dinosaur eggs may have taken many months to hatch, perhaps 3 to 6. A slow, patient incubation more like a reptile's than a bird's quick clutch. Picture that stretch of time, not days, but season into season, the parents tending the nest, the little lives within, growing slowly toward the light, in no hurry at all. Everything about these animals seems to move at that gentle, unhurried pace, even their very beginnings. To be born a dinosaur was to spend a long, warm age in the dark of the shell first, ripening quietly, taking all the time the world would give. 65. Now let me tell you about a wrong that has finally been put right. Long ago, a small dinosaur was discovered lying atop a clutch of eggs, and those who found it assumed the worst, that it had died in the act of stealing them. They gave it a name that means egg thief, and for decades it wore that name like an accusation. But later discoveries revealed the truth. The eggs were its own. It had not been robbing the nest. It had been sitting on it, sheltering it, a devoted parent caring for its clutch, and it died protecting them. The cruel name has stuck by the rules of science, but we know better now. It was no thief. It was a mother, or perhaps a father, keeping the eggs safe, and history simply misjudged it for a very long time. 66. And we know that tenderness was real. because we have found it frozen in the act. There are fossils of small feathered dinosaurs preserved, still sitting upon their nests, bodies settled low over the eggs, arms spread wide to either side to cover and shelter the clutch, in exactly the posture a bird uses to brood its young today. These parents were buried suddenly, mid-care, and so their last gesture was kept: the spreading of the arms over the eggs, the sheltering of the next generation with their own bodies. It is one of the most moving things in all the fossil record. Across 70 million years and more, a parent reaching out to cover its eggs, and being found still reaching, its final act of care preserved forever in the stone. 67. One kind of dinosaur has a name that simply means good mother lizard, and it earned it. At its nesting sites, the young appear to have stayed in the nest well after hatching, their little legs not yet strong enough to carry them far, while worn plant matter nearby suggests the parents brought food back to them. These were not babies left to fend for themselves, but nestlings tended and fed, kept safe in the hollow of the nest until they grew strong enough to venture out. It is a homely, familiar picture, isn't it? A parent returning again and again to the nest with food, small, hungry faces lifting toward it, the ordinary, patient labor of raising the young, unfolding 100 million years ago, exactly as it does outside your window this spring. 68. It may not always have been the mother keeping watch. In some of the bird-line dinosaurs, researchers have noticed that the clutches were unusually large, larger than one female might easily produce alone, and that the nest arrangements resemble those of certain birds today, in which the father does the sitting. From this comes an intriguing idea, still a hypothesis rather than a settled fact, that in these dinosaurs, it may have been the males who guarded and brooded the eggs. We cannot be sure, and it likely varied, but it is a warm possibility to rest on, that among some of these creatures, it was the father who settled over the nest through the long incubation, keeping the eggs safe, waiting for them to stir. 69. When at last they hatched, not all baby dinosaurs met the world the same way. Some came out well developed and ready, able to walk and follow almost at once, like the young of the great longnecks, who may have set off on their own from the very start. A baby sauropod, no larger than a cat, would step out of its shell into a world of giants and begin, immediately, the long journey of growing into one. Others hatched small and helpless, needing to be sheltered and fed, depending wholly on the care of their parents. Two different ways of beginning a life, but both of them tender, and both of them brave, in their way. To be newly hatched was to be very small, in a very large world, and to carry on regardless. 70. So watch, now, as one egg begins to stir. A small crack runs across the shell that has held its warmth for months. A little damp, blinking creature works its way out into the cool night air, into the world of ferns and low calls and enormous, distant shapes. It rests a moment, gathering itself, this newest dinosaur, fresh from the dark of the egg. And here a quiet question rises, the one that will carry us onward. What color was it? What colors moved across the skin and feathers of these creatures, in a world we can no longer see? For a long time we thought we could never know, but the stones, it turns out, have been keeping even that. Part 8. The Colors of Lost Worlds. 71. For almost the whole history of our fascination with dinosaurs, their colors were a blank we filled with guesses. We painted them gray and green and brown, the drab shades of crocodiles and elephants, because we had nothing else to go on. And then, not so long ago, something wonderful happened. Scientists discovered that in certain beautifully preserved fossils, The colors themselves had been recorded, hidden at a scale far too small to see with the eye, waiting all along in the stone. Suddenly, for the first time, we could begin to say not just what a dinosaur looked like, but what it looked like in color. Tonight, in this quiet part of the journey, let us watch a little of that lost world flush back into color, softly, like dawn coming up over the gray. 72. The secret lies in tiny structures called melanosomes. In living skin and feathers, color comes in part from these minuscule packets of pigment, and remarkably, their shape is tied to the color they produce. Round, berry-like ones tend to make reddish and brown tones, while long, rod-shaped ones tend to make blacks and grays, and neatly ordered ones can create shimmering, metallic sheens. In the finest fossils, these little structures survive, keeping their shapes across tens of millions of years. So by looking at their form under a powerful microscope and comparing them with the melanosomes of living birds, scientists can carefully infer the colors a dinosaur once wore. It is a painstaking, delicate kind of reading, closer to code breaking than to painting. But it works, and it has begun to give the ancient world its colors back. 73. The first dinosaur to have its full coloring worked out this way was a small feathered creature called Anchiornis, and the picture that emerged was striking. Its body appears to have been mostly black and white, its limbs banded in the two shades, and crowning its head a spray of reddish-orange feathers, a rusty little crest. Something perhaps like a strange woodpecker the size of a chicken, boldly patterned, quietly beautiful. Imagine seeing it for the first time in the mind's eye, after a lifetime of gray guesses. Not a drab reptile at all, but a crisp, elegant, black and white animal with a flame-colored cap, stepping through the Jurassic underbrush. The dinosaurs, it turned out, had been dressed all along in patterns we simply had not learned to see. 74. Another small feathered hunter, called Sinosauropteryx, gave up its colors too, and they are utterly charming. It seems to have been a warm ginger, a reddish-brown, with a long tail ringed in stripes of that color, and white, like a russet raccoon's tail, and across its eyes ran a darker band, a natural mask, exactly like the bandit's stripe a raccoon wears today. Picture this little ginger dinosaur, striped tail streaming behind it, dark mask across its face, trotting through the ferns. It is impossible not to feel a kind of affection for it. These were not the monsters of our nightmares. Some of them were small and russet and masked and rather endearing, going about their business in colors we would recognize instantly in a creature alive today. 75. Not all their colors were soft. One small four-winged glider we met earlier, Microraptor, appears to have been a deep, glossy black, and not a flat black either, but an iridescent one, shot through with a metallic blue and green sheen, the way a raven or a starling gleams when the sun catches it. Its melanosomes were of the neat, ordered kind that create that shimmering oil-on-water quality. So picture it now, with new eyes, a small dark dinosaur, stepping off a branch and gliding through the dappled forest light, its feathers flashing blue, black, and green as it passed through each shaft of sun. There was iridescence in the age of the dinosaurs. There was shimmer and gloss, and the sudden gleam of color turning in the light. 76. For a long time, this kind of color reading was possible only for the small feathered dinosaurs. But very recently, researchers reported finding these same tiny pigment structures in the fossil of a young, long-necked giant, a baby of the great sauropod family. To glimpse the coloring of one of the giants, even faintly, even in an infant, is a new and startling thing. It hints that one day we may be able to picture not only the little feathered hunters in their true colors, but the towering long necks as well. No longer gray shapes from a textbook, but real animals with real hues moving across their enormous flanks. The palette of the lost world keeps widening, quietly, as we learn to look more closely. 77. Many dinosaurs, it seems, wore their colors as camouflage, in a pattern you will have seen on countless animals. Darker along the back, paler underneath. This arrangement, called countershading, helps flatten an animal's shape against the light, making it harder to see. What is striking is that even some large, well-armored dinosaurs appear to have worn it. One heavily armored plant-eater, preserved in extraordinary detail, was reddish-brown above and lighter below, dressed for concealment despite its size and its plating, and that carries a quiet, sobering hint. An animal that large would only need to hide if something out there was large enough and fierce enough to hunt it. Even the armored ones, it seems, had reason to blend into the ferns. 78. The colors were not only on the animals themselves. Some dinosaurs, it turns out, laid colored eggs. By the same careful reading of pigments, researchers have found that certain dinosaur eggs were tinted blue-green or speckled and spotted, much like the eggs of songbirds today. So picture a nest again, but now see it truly. Not a clutch of plain white shells, but eggs washed in soft blue-green, freckled with darker marks, resting in the hollow of the nest. The robin's egg on your windowsill in spring is carrying forward a very old habit indeed. Color came to the eggs of the dinosaurs long ago, and some of them, waiting in their nests 100 million years past, were as gently beautiful as anything a bird lays now. 79. We must be honest, though, about the edges of what we can know, for the picture is real but partial. The melanosomes that survive tend to record the browns, the blacks, the grays, and the iridescent sheens, but many of the brightest colors in living animals, the vivid reds and yellows, come from different pigments, ones that may not survive fossilization at all. So it is likely that some dinosaurs wore colors we simply cannot recover, flashes of red or gold now lost to us entirely. The reconstructions we have are true as far as they go, but they are not the whole. Much of the color of that world has faded past our reach. What we have caught are glimpses, real and precious, through a small window into a far more colorful world than even our new pictures can show. 80. Still, how the old gray image softens and warms when we let these colors in. No longer a museum hall of dull reconstructions, but a living forest of russet and cream, of black and white patterns and flame-colored crests, of feathers flashing blue-green in the sun, and nests of soft speckled eggs among the ferns. This was the world in its fullness, colored and warm and alive. And all of it, every hue and every feather, every nest and every low call, was moving, in those last ages, toward the same quiet resting place, down, in time, beneath a layer of settling stone. For this bright, living world was drawing, though it did not know it, toward one particular afternoon. Let us go there now, very gently, and watch the light begin to change. Part 9. The Last Afternoon. 81. Picture an ordinary afternoon, around 66 million years ago. The light is warm and low. Long-necked giants browse the treetops. Small feathered hunters step through the ferns. Somewhere a low call rolls across the valley and is answered, just as it has been for 180 million years. Nothing about this afternoon feels like an ending. The nests are full. The forests are green. The world is going about its long, slow business, exactly as it always has. And that is the gentlest and hardest thing to hold about it. No one in that landscape knew. It was simply another warm afternoon, among countless warm afternoons, and it happened, quietly, to be the last one of its kind. Let us stay in it a moment longer, in the soft light, before it begins to change. 82. What came was a visitor from far beyond the world. An asteroid, a piece of rock left over from the making of the solar system, perhaps 10 or 15 kilometers across, a small mountain moving faster than any bullet. It crossed the sky and struck the shallow sea off what is now Mexico, near the Yucatan, gouging out a crater more than 180 kilometers wide, a wound in the earth so large it can still be traced today, buried beneath rock and water. We will not dwell on the violence of that moment. It is enough to know that in a single instant, after all those unhurried ages, something arrived from outside the world entirely, and the long afternoon of the dinosaurs began, very quickly, to end. 83. The strange thing is how quietly that catastrophe is written in the rock. All around the world, if you find the right layer of stone from that exact moment, you will see a thin band of clay, often no thicker than a finger, running through the rock like a single pencil line. And in that line is a trace of a metal rare, on the surface of the Earth, but common in asteroids, which is how scientists first realized what had happened. The whole ending of the dinosaurs, that world-changing day, is recorded in a mark you could cover with your hand. It is a humbling thing to picture, an entire age closing, and its full stop written so thin, so faint, so quiet, in the patient pages of the stone. 84. What followed the impact was not fire, but darkness, and it is the darkness that did the deepest harm. Enormous amounts of dust and soot were thrown high into the air and spread around the whole globe, dimming the sun for a long time, likely months and perhaps years. In that gloom the world grew cold, and the plants, starved of light, began to fail. And when the plants faltered, everything that fed on them, and everything that fed on those, faltered too, slowly, quietly, all down the long chain of life. It was less a sudden blow than a long, dimming winter, settling over the whole earth. The light simply went out of the world for a while, and the great warm forests and the giants who lived in them could not endure the dark. 85. Exactly how that darkness worked is still being studied, and the picture keeps sharpening. A study reported very recently has proposed that extremely fine dust thrown up by the impact may have played an even larger role than once thought, hanging in the air and deepening the darkness and cold, dragging out the long night longer still. This is new work, and we hold it lightly, the way we hold anything freshly proposed. But it fits the shape of the story we already had. The killing thing was not chiefly the heat or the blast. It was the quiet, the cold, and above all the dark, settling over the whole world and staying, long after the moment of impact had passed. 86. At one remarkable place, in the rocks of North America, scientists believe they may have found the record of that single day itself. In this site are preserved the traces of creatures that seem to have died within hours of the distant impact, caught up in the upheaval it sent across the continent, even down to tiny beads of molten rock, flung from the crater, lodged in the gills of fish. If the reading is correct, and its details are still discussed and debated, then it is an almost unbearably intimate thing, a window onto the very day the long afternoon ended, the ordinary creatures of an ordinary riverbank, going about their lives in the last few hours of the old world. History rarely lets us stand so close to a single day. 87. And it may not have been the asteroid alone. Around the same stretch of time, on the far side of the world in what is now India, vast volcanic eruptions were pouring out lava and gases over an immense area, and these too could have strained the world's climate and life. Scientists still weigh how much of the ending to lay at the door of the asteroid and how much at the volcanoes, and the balance is genuinely debated. Perhaps the world was already under quiet stress when the visitor from space arrived, and the impact was the final weight upon an overburdened world. We do not fully know, but it is worth holding gently that great endings can have more than one cause, gathering slowly before the last blow falls. 88. Here, though, the story turns and begins very softly to lift, for not everything ended on that darkened earth. In the cold and the gloom, small creatures that could shelter underground, or slip beneath the water, or live on seeds and buried nuts, and the quiet debris of the forest floor, found ways to endure. The world did not go silent. It went quiet, and small, and patient, waiting out the long dark. Life did not so much survive that ending as hide inside it, keeping its embers safe, the way you might cup a small flame against the wind. And when at last the dust began to clear and the pale sun returned, those small, sheltering survivors crept out into a changed and empty world and carried life onward. 89. And among the survivors, quietly, were the dinosaurs, not the giants, not the long necks or the great hunters, but one small branch of the family that had, by then, become the birds. Even among the birds, it seems the toothed ones and many of the larger ones were lost, and it was chiefly the small, beaked kinds that came through, perhaps because a beak could crack the seeds that lay waiting in the ruined soil, and a small body needed little to live on. Exactly why some made it and others did not is still being pieced together, so we hold the reasons gently. But the thread held. Through the narrowest gate, in the darkest season the world has known, a handful of small feathered dinosaurs slipped through, alive. 90. So the dinosaurs did not entirely end on that last afternoon. The great ones did. The footprints by the river filled for the final time and went still. The nests fell quiet, the eggs unhatched, and slowly, over the ages that followed, the old bright world settled downward, leaf and bone and shell, beneath a deepening layer of stone. But above that closing layer, something small and feathered lifted into the pale returning light and flew on. The line was not broken, it was only made very small and very quiet and sent forward into a new world. And that is where our last chapter waits, in what the stone remembers of all this, and in where those small survivors are tonight. Come gently, we are nearly at the end. Part 10. What the Stone Remembers. 91. Let us end where the whole story is kept, in the stone. And the first thing to know is how rare it is for anything to be kept at all. The vast majority of living things leave no trace whatsoever. To become a fossil, a creature must usually be buried quickly, before it can decay or be scattered, and then lie undisturbed, while, over ages, minerals seep in and slowly turn its bones to stone. Almost nothing manages it, so every fossil we have is a kind of small miracle of survival. A single life that, against enormous odds, was caught and kept and handed forward to us across tens of millions of years. When you see a dinosaur bone, You are seeing one of the luckiest objects in the world. 92. How do we know the ages, the millions upon millions of years we have been speaking of so freely? Much of it comes from the rocks laid down by ancient volcanoes. When volcanic ash settles into a layer, it begins a slow, steady inner clock, as certain elements within it change, atom by atom, at a rate we can measure. By reading those clocks in layers above and below the dinosaur fossils, scientists can pin down their ages with real confidence. So the great depths of time in this story are not guesses. They are read, carefully, from the patient chemistry of the stone itself, layer by layer, clock by clock, all the way down. 93. We no longer even need to break a fossil open to look inside it. With the same kind of scanning used in hospitals, scientists can see straight through solid rock to the shape hidden within, mapping the hollow where a brain once sat, the paths of nerves, the inner chambers of the skull, all without a single cut. A fossil that would once have had to be sawn apart or left forever a mystery can now be turned and studied from the inside in perfect detail. It is a quiet kind of magic, this looking within. The stone keeps its secret shapes, and we have learned, at last, how to see them without ever disturbing the creature's long rest. 94. Sometimes the stone gives us something almost too tender to believe. In a lump of amber, fossilized tree resin from around 99 million years ago, researchers found the tail of a small dinosaur, complete with its feathers, caught and held in the golden resin like a flower pressed in glass. Not an imprint, not a trace. The actual feathered tail, its delicate plumage preserved in 3 dimensions, exactly as it was in life. Imagine that small creature brushing against a bead of sticky resin one ordinary day, and that single moment being sealed and kept, feathers and all, through 99 million years, until it came to rest, at last, in a human hand. The stone remembers even the softest things, if the chance is kind. 95. There are hints, too, of things we once thought could never last. In a few remarkable cases, scientists have reported finding what may be traces of soft tissue deep inside dinosaur bones, delicate structures, perhaps even fragments of the original proteins, surviving where only stone was expected. If these findings hold, and they are still carefully debated, they would be astonishing, pushing back our sense of what time can preserve. We hold such claims gently, as good science does, waiting for more evidence before we lean our full weight on them. But even the possibility is a wonder, that somewhere, in the heart of an ancient bone, a whisper of the living animal itself might still remain. 96. And yet, for all we have learned, how much still rests in the dark. We do not fully know why the greatest hunters grew as large as they did. We cannot be sure how large the very largest giants truly were, those ghosts glimpsed in lost bones. We have caught only fragments of their colors, and can only guess at most of their sounds, and can never quite watch them live. And by careful estimate, perhaps 3/4 of all the kinds that ever existed are still buried, unfound, unnamed, waiting in the rock beneath our feet. The age of the dinosaurs is not a closed book. It is mostly unread. Let that be a comfort rather than a sorrow. As you drift, there is so much wonder still waiting, patiently, to be found. 97. In fact, the discovering has never stopped. Even now, new kinds of dinosaur are being found and named at a steady pace, season after season, from quarries and cliffs and riverbanks all over the world. The child alive today may grow up in a world that knows twice as many dinosaurs as we do. The story we have told tonight is not finished and never will be, quite. It is still being written, gently, one new bone at a time, by people kneeling in the dust with soft brushes, uncovering creatures that no human eye has ever seen. Somewhere, tonight, a dinosaur still entirely unknown is lying in the rock, waiting for the morning it will be found. 98. And here, at last, is the secret we have been carrying since the very first part. The dinosaurs never entirely died. That small feathered branch that slipped through the darkness became the birds, and the birds are dinosaurs still, as truly as any that ever walked. There are more kinds of them alive today than there are kinds of mammal, thousands upon thousands, in every corner of the world. The sparrow on the wire, the gull over the harbor, the tiny hummingbird from earlier in our journey, resting on its flower. Every one of them is a living dinosaur, carrying that ancient line forward into this very night. The age of the dinosaurs did not end. It only learned to sing and took to the air and is with us still. 99. Remember the footprint we began with, all those hours ago. It is not only an image. In many places in the world, you can still kneel beside a real dinosaur footprint, pressed into stone that was once soft mud, 3 broad toes as clear as the day they were made. You can lay your own hand inside it. You can trace a whole trackway walking off across the rock, the steady steps of a creature crossing wet ground on an afternoon 66 million years gone, and more. The mark we imagined at the start is truly there, waiting, in more places than you would think. The past is not entirely lost to us. Some of it is pressed into the stone, patient and real, close enough to touch. 100. So let it all settle now, softly, into place. The footprint pressed in the mud by the river, the egg warm in the nest among the ferns, and the long, gentle layer of stone that closed at last over that whole bright, breathing world, keeping it safe, holding it for us to find. Nothing was truly lost. It was only laid down and remembered and carried on. Far off, across a warm valley that is now a field of grass, a low call still crosses the morning air, and the voice of every bird that greets the dawn. The dinosaurs are sleeping in the stone and singing in the trees, all at once. And you, now, can let yourself rest, knowing the world keeps what it loves, quietly, for a very long time. You have come a very long way tonight, all the way from a world without flowers, through the giants and the small swift ones, past the nests and the colors, and the long dimming afternoon, and back again to the birds singing outside your own window. Thank you for drifting through all of it with us. This has been Drift Through History. If these quiet journeys through the deep past help you rest, you are always welcome to stay with us, and to come back whenever sleep feels far away. There is no hurry, and nothing more you need to do tonight. The dinosaurs waited 180 million years to tell you their story, and they are patient still. So let the footprint fill slowly with rain. Let the egg stay warm in its nest. Let the stone close gently over the old green world, keeping it safe. Somewhere a low call crosses the valley and is answered and fades. Let your breathing slow to the pace of that ancient, unhurried world where nothing needed to be rushed and everything had all the time it could ever want. Rest now. The past is keeping watch, and we will be here, waiting quietly in the stone, whenever you would like to drift through history again. Good night.